District 65 Board of Education regular meeting for February 17th, 2015. We're going to have a Secretary Pro Tem tonight, so Julie, could you please do a roll call for us?
Sure. Mark Berry.
Present.
Leanne Charlo, absent. Julie Gottschall, present. Richard Hegg.
Present.
Christine Lettinger, absent. John Rosen.
Present.
Susan Ryder, absent.
All right, so we have 4, we have a quorum, we can continue. Can we stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We will go first. We always offer the opportunity if anybody on the board would like to recommend an item for a future agenda item. Please do so now. We'll make sure we address it in a future meeting, and if not, we'll move on. And open the floor to public comment. If anybody would like to address the board, please do so now. Don't all rush to the podium at once. And then, I reversed them, I apologize. I reversed public comment in addition to discussion item. And then we're going to move right on to item 6, recognition, where the 2 social workers from Lake Bluff Elementary School will be giving a short presentation on a social emotional lesson.
Yes, I am pleased to introduce or reintroduce Erica Hansen as our new social work at Lake Bluff Elementary School. She works with our early childhood through 2nd grade. And then Miss Jen Perlis-Glassman, who is popularly known as Jen PG. She works with our 3rd through 5th grade students. We are so thankful and thrilled to have 2 social workers in our building now. I know this is my first year, but I look back and wonder how Jen PG managed the whole building on her own. We definitely keep these ladies very busy, both with planned groups with students, individual students, pushing into classrooms, and just helping us. There's things that come up each and every day that we are not expecting with 500 kiddos in the building, so they are busy all the time. One of the great things this year, since we've had the added position, is that we can be more proactive about what we're doing with our students and our staff in regards to social emotional learning. So a couple of things that they're going to talk to you about tonight are good examples of some of those planned activities that we have been able to be a little more proactive about. So I will turn it over to them to explain their presentation.
Thank you so much for seeing us and listening to us tonight. One of the many things that we're really fortunate to do this year is to allow the kids to do some proactive learning. So one of the big pieces that we focus on every day is our pause, which is practicing kindness, act responsibly, welcome challenges, and show respect. This year, we have done a lot of great work doing some teaching and modeling of those great social skills, from how to behave in the library to what are the classroom rules, to how do you listen to a substitute teacher, that we really try to focus on every scenario that a child will endure. One piece that Erica very cleverly put together with Margaret St. Clair's help, and I did one as well, was a video for hallway behavior. So I'd like her to explain to you some of the video footage that you're about to see and what led up to this, because it's really very cool and it allows the kids to learn a little bit more over the scope and sequence of all of the kids learning the same message at the same time.
Hi, thank you. I'm Erica Hansen, like they said. And I was able to create a video that focused on hallway behavior. Earlier this school year, we were able to attend several different trainings led by Randy Sprick, and he just talked so much about setting up the expectations for our students and really teaching them what we want them to do. We might expect that they should know to walk quietly in the hallway or walk respectfully, but really giving them that example. So I was able to have some great actors from the kindergarten and 1st grade, and one of my 2nd grade students was the narrator of the video. So if Ms. Simon, if you could cue it up.
At Lake Bluff Elementary School, we follow pause behavior in our hallways. We act responsibly and walk We show respect and remind a friend without talking. At Lakewood Elementary, we welcome challengers and practice pause hallway behavior.
Yeah, and then so after the video, we had all of the primary teachers show it to their classrooms, and then Margaret and Tracy Rourke and myself were then very proactive. Whenever we were in the hallways, we had teachers either give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down about how their class had been doing, so then we could comment and say, oh wow, you know, Mrs. York, your line is looking great, they're walking so quietly, or, you know, maybe ask them to try that again. So that's something that we've been working on.
And the kids really like that, as you could tell, because it's very entertaining. Another facet that we've been working on too, from the preschool on to 5th grade, is working on our second step program. It's a violence prevention program which is designed to focus on teaching direct skills with empathy training, impulse control, decision making, problem solving, and anger management, which essentially is stress management techniques. What it looks like is Erica and I go into the classrooms for about 10 sessions, week by week, about a half hour each week. The preschool gets twice a week for about a half an hour each session. And we focus on, again, that direct teaching and direct instruction. So I wanted to bring just an example to give you a little picture and visualize it yourself. We come in and we talk about a skill that's really important. So for example, this is problem solving. We teach the kids how to problem solve and the template to problem solve, because we feel like if kids have an idea or a recipe of how they could solve a problem, they could solve and tackle almost anything independently. So in problem solving, we teach them in order to make a good decision or to manage a problem, you have to define for yourself what's the problem that you're faced with, brainstorm all solutions, anything, and then deciding of those solutions you've brainstormed, because there's nothing wrong with brainstorming, you decide, is my solution safe? Is it fair? How will I feel if I use this solution, and will it work? Once the child finds the best solution for any problem, they select the best one and choose it and use it. And then afterwards, there's a moment of reflection that we teach to, did I do the best job with this? And once they do it, we teach that, we work on it with them together, and then when they start doing it independently and helping one another, that's when we know that the true problem solving and decision making is really happening. So for example, once they've learned that, then we talk about an example such as this. This is dealing with fear. And the situation is a girl gets the lead part in a school play and she's really nervous and she can't focus on anything else. So we ask the kids, in their opinion, what do they think the problem is? And they might say something like, well, she's really distracted or she's preoccupied. And then we talk about, well, why is she nervous and how can you tell she's nervous and what in your body happens when you're nervous and what coping skills can she use in order to deal with that problem. But then more importantly, we can talk to the kids very, very, I think, intuitively about, well, how have you ever dealt with a problem like that? And how can you deal with this in school? When I'm teaching this lesson, because this lesson happens to be just an example of the 4th grade curriculum, they start talking about test taking. Because there is a fear for some kids with test taking or any new project. We start talking about, well, how do you handle that? And what works for you? And what's just beautiful, in my opinion, about that is they start, using others' ideas. So it's a really great way to get kids talking, but it's also a really great way to really help them problem solve, but use other kids' ideas for problem solving and stress management, which is then a big portion of the second step programming. But Erica and I both feel really lucky that we get to go into all the classes, because not only are we teaching these great skills, but we get to know half the school, so that's really exciting, and it's great marketing for us as well, because then we get to see more kids. So thank you so much for letting us come and talk to you a little bit about what we do from a day-to-day.
How often do you interact with the kids?
So we try to be pretty visible. Now I, like for example, right now I'm in the 3rd grade because I've gone through the 5th and the 4th. And I've been in there for I go once a week for about 30 minutes. I would say that over the past couple of years, social work I think is a pretty popular venue for our school. I think kids are very readily willing to come if they have a problem and they've tried to solve it on their own and that hasn't been successful. I mean, I hear of problems, small, medium, large, but whatever it is, it doesn't matter. They know that I have an open door policy, and I feel like they're very comfortable coming to talk, and I think that's the same for the primary as well.
So in addition to being in the classrooms, they do have scheduled either groups with students or individual times with students, but just like Jen said, kids come knocking on my door. Like I found at recess, will you help me? And it is so much a skill that they know that these are 2 ladies that will help them do that and kind of support them through that. So it's really not, if anything, a badge of honor that you've worked with our social workers instead of kind of a stigma, because they really know that it's a resource to help them out. And in addition to that, both Jen and Eric are really involved in communicating with parents and working with teachers on working on really specific behavior plans in classrooms for students who might be struggling with behavior issues or helping them work with teachers to help students who need some assistance with attention and other things like that. So such a multifaceted job. Like I said, I'm not really quite sure how Jen did it before. We were really using both ladies around the clock. So I'm really happy that.
Can you use that microphone?
Oh, it's really up now, probably.
So I don't want to repeat all of that, but we are so thrilled to have our two social workers with us, and probably in my next life I will come back to be a social worker because I really admire what they do. So, any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
very much.
Thank you for coming tonight, too.
Okay. We're going to move on to reports, and this is easy because we don't have any reports except for the superintendent's report, who's handing that off to Jay and Kevin, who are going to give us an update on what happened at the Lake Bluff Middle School Facilities Committee meeting last week.
And this update will be really brief. We met last Wednesday evening with the Lake Bluff Middle School Facilities team, a broad-ranging group of stakeholders, community members, teachers, administrators, and others. With the architects, we reviewed the site visits that they did to other districts that they had worked on, and then sort of worked together to prioritize amongst that group what some of the big issues might be that we want to work on, and then sort of talked about and looked at some big ideas for the future. And you guys are going to get a great, much more in-depth discussion of that at the March 10th Committee of the Whole meeting. And so, other than
Do you guys have meetings between now and then?
we do not have
We do.
okay.
I have Jay and I are meeting with them this week, and then we will be starting weekly meetings in March.
with the
So, architect.
with the architects, right? Not with the facilities.
Right.
Committee.
And on the March 10th meeting, our March 10th COW meeting is actually going to be at Lake Bluff Middle School. And at that meeting, we are going to all be touring the building before the white construction comes in and shows
That's a good idea.
some of the ideas and shares all the,
The board is going to be touring you.
yes, the board is going to be touring Lake Bluff Middle School. And actually, probably what will happen is you'll be touring in the middle of the meeting, because they're going to start out and talk a little bit about what happened at the meeting. They're going to show some of the pictures, and then they're going to take you all on a tour, and then come back and talk a little bit about the timeline that we're going to be working with. So,
And Kevin, in the community meeting, do you feel like the conversation is channeling, like beginning to narrow things down and acquire some focus, or is it all over the place, or where is it? Where's it headed?
I think that there are a variety of opinions, and you guys will, the architects really have a good handle on how to handle work like this. And so they come at us with a lot of different ideas with an attempt to prioritize all of those ideas.
So that next presentation will be by White.
Yes.
The one we're talking about. Okay.
And that will be, with the exception of one quick discussion item that regarding our levy that we said we'd be back in March on. The entire meeting of March 10th is going to be on Lake Bluff Middle School renovations. So.
And in that meeting, will we be receiving a variety of options, or is it sort of
Yes.
the final solution? Okay.
No. You're going to be, the board needs to see all the options
Okay.
and
So
kind of give us an idea on that piece too.
That would be a good meeting to do a little bit of extra publicity on to make sure people in the community know that's happening.
You
So
can
they
easily do that.
So they can see that.
We have one of our new community reporters in the audience, and I saw her jump up there. Nikki, could you do me a quick favor while we're on this? Can you do me a favor and come up to the mic up here and just introduce yourself to the board and tell them the name of your new newspaper and when you're going to be starting publication? And then we'll go back to the Lake Bluff Middle School. It just fits in the conversation here, so.
I'm Nikki Ketting. I'm the editor of the new newspaper, the Lake Forest Leader. We'll be covering everything and anything going on in Lake Forest and Lake Bluff. Our first issue actually comes out this Thursday. Just got the issues in the office, so pretty exciting.
Good.
So we'll try to be at every Lake Bluff school board meetings, village board meetings, and Lake Forest as well. So, yeah.
Is it a paper
Yes,
publication?
It's a weekly newspaper. Comes out every Thursday. Brief to every home and business in Lake Forest and Lake Bluff.
Delivered to the home, or will we pick it up? Oh, okay.
Comes through the U.S. mail.
Great, good.
And so I think the circulation is about 12,400. And then we have an online component as well.
Your website?
Yes, we have a website.
What is it?
LakeForestLeader.com.
Okay.
Although I don't think it's functioning right now.
Okay.
They're brand new.
Well, tomorrow. I heard that today. That it will tomorrow. So yeah.
You happen to be sitting here, so it just fit in.
Well, good luck.
Yeah.
Welcome.
So you'll see everyone.
Yeah.
And that will be a very good meeting, and
Oh, definitely.
I will work with Adrian from the Daily North Shore, and you're here so that all of you know when our meeting is. It's an important meeting to attend.
March
So.
10th. All right.
March 10th, and it will be at our middle school.
Okay.
So,
All right.
and
Great.
if you need help on where that is, just send me an email. So,
Anyone who attends those meetings for the first time.
I'm just kidding, Nikki. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Did anybody else have any other questions for Jay or Kevin?
Okay. So we're going to move on to discussion items, and the first one is the board planning calendar. James.
I have one other quick announcement from superintendent's
Okay.
report, and then I'm going to go right into board planning calendar.
Sure.
I did want to share with the board that our 8th graders are leaving for Washington, D.C. at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. And yes, Washington, D.C. was shut down all day today because of the weather, but tomorrow it's going to be good. So everybody's been watching the weather. The planes are expected to leave on time, and we get a lot of updates from Nate, who sends text messages, tweets, and school messengers. And they will be in DC Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The cold weather for them is hitting Friday, and they're anxious and ready to go. But I know that some parents were concerned about the weather because it was big news this morning on what's going on out there.
They got like 3 inches of snow.
Well,
That's big, yeah.
so moving right along to board planning calendar, I just wanted to make a couple quick comments. When you look at the February goals, the non-certified staffing plan we will be bringing to you in March. And I also wanted to make a comment that you should be getting my artifacts for my evaluation either by Friday of this week or Monday at the latest.
And then,
So-
and then we're going to have the the online evaluation. I don't know the date, but coming up pretty soon.
Actually, it's coming up pretty soon, so you and I will have to kind of synchronize so you can send an email out. It's all ready to go. I just need to send it to Lori to get the passwords.
Okay.
So when you look at the February board planning calendar, we're right on track. That's my report. Moving on to the next one.
Okay, so you covered the board planning calendar enough. All right, so item 8B, private benefit traffic signal. Jay Kahn, our Director of Finance, will discuss with the board the current situation regarding a traffic signal at Waukegan Road and Foster Avenue. Jay Kahn.
Okay. There's a description of the situation in your packet. Essentially, when we had a school, West School, situated in unincorporated Knollwood, they were improving Waukegan Road, and the Park District and the school district and the township all went in together to put a stoplight at that intersection to allow children to cross Waukegan Road safely. We signed an intergovernmental agreement that lasted for 20 years that basically said that the state would maintain the signal and that they would bill those parties equally for the next 20 years. And then at the end of that 20 years, the agreement expired and could only be extended by written agreement. The story we've gotten is that apparently this fell through the cracks and nobody ever renewed it, and they just kept sending bills and everybody kept paying them and nobody ever questioned it. So I got one of the bills and I just started looking into it and asking some questions, and I got a copy of their agreement which said it ended after 20 years, and I assumed that all of the responsibility for payment just reverted to IDOT after that point. And so I started asking some questions. Essentially, the way it works is, because it's a private light, we technically own the light, and if we don't want it anymore, they'll do a traffic study to determine if it's warranted to be there. It wasn't warranted at the time, and so the concern is that they will, if they own the light, then they'll do a study, find that there's no traffic reason to have a light there, and they'll remove it, and that could be an issue for the community. So
and it's an issue for us.
And it could be an issue for us if our buses can't turn out of the neighborhood. So,
and it also results, we would have to pay for the light to be taken out, which would they tell us today, $20,000 to $30,000, something like that.
I think so. Now it doesn't say that anywhere in the agreement. That's how they proceed. I think if we wanted to fight the cost of removing the traffic light, we would incur some legal expenses and may end up paying for it anyway. So the risk is that we would have to have an attorney argue that we shouldn't be paying for the removal of the light, but I believe they have hundreds of these lights all over the state, and that's kind of how they all work. And they just didn't write this agreement in the same way that they write them now and never updated it. So it would be a technicality that would allow us to not have to pay for it, but I think we spent a lot of effort to avoid our cost of $1,200 a year, which is what we pay for the light currently.
However, we also did find out today that when you start asking questions, the township now has not been charging us for electricity. And so by asking the questions, they realize they haven't charged us for electricity. So now it's going to be how much more a month?
I think they said they pay $400. I can't remember if it's $400 a year or $400 a quarter, but they would split that 3 ways.
For one traffic light?
For one traffic light.
Although we did also got a proposal to replace the bulbs with LEDs, which would cut our electricity costs, but we'd have to pay to replace the bulbs.
So what's this $1,200 go to?
With the state, just they maintain it. That's a very nebulous thing. They go out and check it and paint it and make sure that it's working. And I don't know exactly what maintain it means, but that's what they.
And IDOT does all that.
That's the Illinois Department of Transportation maintains the lighting.
When we say township, by the way, we're talking about
Shields
Township. So the village has nothing to do with
This is unincorporated Knollwood, so it's not within the village limits. They did not pay for the original stoplight. They don't pay for any of the maintenance. But you saw the letter from the village engineer who is of the opinion that this light is a benefit to the community and that they would want to see it maintained.
So who actually owns the light? We do or they do?
We do, the township does, And the
We own a third of the light.
We own part of the light.
So
I
you
mean,
can
we have the
point-
right if we want to. I mean, Mark and I can take our step ladders over there and take it down next weekend, right? If Ron Salsky.
I don't know. I mean, so the options are really to renegotiate among the three parties the share of paying for the light, to say we don't want to pay for the light, or just to continue as
And that's the bottom line, and the bigger part of the bottom line is we've already been told by the village, we talked to Ron today, they feel he's going to be bringing to his board that they feel very strongly with the park over there that we should be having it. So my question I kept asking Jay is what's in it for the kids, because we're a school district and now the school's not there. But it would be a crossing for kids that would be walking, although we don't have kids that walk from over there. And the buses could pull out.
Do our buses pull out of that intersection?
Yes.
And so they turn right coming out of there?
So the bottom line of it is, do we want to be good neighbors and you know, really throw our hat in and say, let's renegotiate this? Or do we just want to say, we're out of it? When two of our partners have already said they feel that it needs to stay there.
I don't think it has anything to do with our kids. No one walks from there over there to our schools. They've got bus service. Let's get out of it.
And it's a community issue, so that's why Jay and I talked and we said, this is something we have to bring back to the board, because...
Have we heard from the township about this? I know it says George Russell spoke to somebody from the township, but have we heard from the township?
I spoke to the person at the township personally, and he said that when he started, was just told to pay it and just kept paying it, and that he feels like he wants to see the light remain, but he doesn't think that their budget can absorb any higher percentage of the cost.
But here's the deal, it's roughly $3,600 a year plus electricity. So let's say it's $5,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So to take it down, even if it costs $20,000, is a 4-year payback.
20 or 30.
Right? We get our money back in 4 years. If we're paying $5,000 a year as a group, and we take it down, it costs $20,000. After 4 years, we've paid what it would cost to keep it going. If the whole point for me would be, is it useful? If it's not useful, I think we ought to get rid of it. If it's useful, then we ought to keep it.
Well, what I think we're hearing though is it's useful for some constituencies, but not
that's-
ours. So where does that put us?
And where does that put... That's exactly it.
So, but talk to me more about the bus situation. It's a right-hand turn that they're making at that signal? So that wouldn't seem to be
No, it would
very
be a left-hand turn.
That would be a left-hand turn.
Right, so
Coming
yeah,
in
left
walking
makes more
in.
sense. Okay.
Coming out of Foster?
No,
Yeah.
Left and right.
yeah, it depends.
That's where they
Okay.
come in.
Four-way intersection.
Oh, it's a four-way.
So they would turn left out of one side.
Okay. So does that, I mean, at that hour of the day when the buses are moving, is it difficult to get out? Does that?
I would think it would be very difficult there.
I take that route to work every day.
Okay.
It's a busy intersection.
It's very congested.
Okay.
It's right by the train tracks.
Right. Yeah.
But that's the only impact to our school district.
Right.
I look at it a little differently. I know we've worked very hard to cement relationships with the park district and the village. Haven't yet worked with the township, but I think it applies there as well. That we've worked very hard to establish or reestablish relationships and work with them on a number of projects. And I think the community expects us to work with the taxpayer in mind and what the community might want, as opposed to looking out for our interests only. And so I would be inclined to, if the bigger picture suggests that the community benefits from that traffic light and kids can cross the street to play at that park, and they are the kids that we educate, and our buses can benefit from that light, I would be inclined to think about continuing the obligation.
That's the big question, is what is the benefit? And we don't know. We've been told, there's a benefit, but we're not really sure.
I'm curious as to how many kids actually cross that street to go into the park. That seems like a stretch to me, but I don't know. Perhaps it is heavily used and is of community benefit.
Well, George in
Certainly,
his,
people seem to think so, right?
well, George says he would suspect this crossing as part of the safe walks to a school route, and that's not the
Right.
case.
we would have
So
that.
if George is justifying continuing it for our purpose, then the supposition isn't
Right.
correct.
What is needed on this?
We just need to know whether we should engage in negotiations to figure out if we can at least lower our cost, or if it's, we just get guidance to say, get out.
Or to continue paying.
Or to just continue paying and let it be.
If we get help, is the plan enough?
Possibly.
To agencies not absorb the rest.
The other agencies would have to absorb the rest, which impacts the Park District and Shields Township.
They also have to do a traffic study.
Well, not necessarily, because what would happen is if the other two don't take over our portion of the campus, then the traffic study would occur.
Would this be more of a township issue than anything else?
That's kind of, we feel that way in some ways, but on the other hand, it's, we said the same thing as Mark. The other way to look at it is if there are kids that are crossing the street, and we're trying to work together with all the taxing bodies, because it all comes from the pockets of our community members, taxes. And if people benefit and our kids actually can cross the street and our buses can pull out, then maybe we should just keep with it. But I will tell you, my initial response was, what does that have to do with the school district now that our school's not there? So, which is why we're bringing it to you.
I mean, presumably if our school buses needed it, that'd be something the traffic study would pick up. It's necessary at certain hours of the day for people to get out of these subdivisions, and if the conclusion would be they take it down, then it must not be that necessary.
I'd let them go ahead and do the traffic study. Doesn't cost us anything, correct? IDOT does that.
I don't think they're going to I don't think they would initiate a traffic study unless they know that we're not going to be paying them anymore.
I think it'd be interesting to see what the traffic study.
Right, I would think so too. It seems like we need more information. There seems to be a lot of just speculation about whether it's necessary and whether it's used.
We're not going to be able to get much more information because I'm trying to get to what we have now has been hard enough.
Kevin,
So-
you see kids crossing that street when you come to work?
It is difficult to say. I mean, there are a couple of our families who live along Waukegan Road right there who use, there are businesses on both sides of the street, so people that's a regular crossing.
Right, I know.
Because there's a stoplight there. I don't know how many of them are families, and I don't know, you know what I'm saying?
Maybe the good thing for us to do at this point would be to engage in negotiations and see if we can get our portion lowered a little bit, since we don't have a school there
Trying to
anymore.
be good neighbors. I understand our position.
I don't think it's a matter of being good neighbors. It's whether it's justifiable or not.
Right, but is this really necessary? Says who and why? I mean, was Ron's position that it is necessary?
Ron's position is it's very important.
And did he say why? Did he say why?
He said because they have the park over there and kids use that cross light to cross over to the park.
So the kids on the west side of 43 go across 43 to
Yes.
the West Cole Park.
So he's going to be recommending to his board just to continue on with what they're doing. Now, our option, we already went through our options, but just to review, we keep doing what we're doing. We engage in negotiations to see if we can get our portion lowered, or we just say we're out of it.
I would at least negotiate.
What's our estimated student population there?
There's probably 5 streets over there.
In Knollwood,
No, to the west of the park. So the only kids that are using it are the kids that live on these 5 streets as they go across 43 to this park.
we don't know.
There are 90 homes in that.
How many?
90 homes.
Okay.
On the west side or
In
in
that-
all?
In that little segment there?
For the tracks.
Yeah.
I
North
think-
and west.
When you read George's letter, though, George is a voice of experience. He really knows the community. He feels, as I understand, very strongly that it would impact the community and that there would be upset in community members.
Their point was also that if you took it down and realized that you wanted a light there and wanted to put another one, it would be very expensive.
What's the cost?
It costs $90,000 30 years ago, he said it cost $250,000 now or some huge number for this stuff.
Thinking
So
we
1.5
own one.
million.
And John volunteered to do maintenance on it. And
No, I said I'd
maintaining
take it down.
So
All
I'm,
right.
should we engage in negotiations at least and see where we can get with that?
Yeah, a little more fact finding.
Right. I think the land use committee may address this issue on Thursday perhaps, and we'll see what further insights can be gained from the land use committee.
So we're just good. In the meantime, you know, we can just reach out to them and see if we can engage in some conversation.
It isn't $1,000 a year. I mean, that's not a lot of money. It's if it, you know, just to determine whether, if the kids really need it, and if they do, then it's an easy decision
Right.
to make, just to determine whether in fact what George assumes and what Ron assumes is accurate.
I think with their position is probably that, given the size of the amount of money, it's not worth
Study?
the effort to study it to that degree and to err on the side of caution and keep it as it is, because if you removed it, and you could be making a mistake, whereas if you leave it, it's a small amount of money. And, you know, I think there's also some of the political just risk that if you remove a stoplight, you know, and for such a small amount of money that you're trying to save, that
Yeah,
that could look bad if
Yeah.
if something happens, or
Risk
just that
factor.
you're not valuing safety of the people in the community.
So let's just keep getting information and
Yeah.
paying the bills right now.
To go drive by and sort of see it and
We'll
get a
just
better sense of
keep
what
paying the
actually-
bill and get more. We'll
It's
get more
affordable,
information.
So we
Yeah.
won't
Yeah.
back for a while.
Judy can spend a weekend out there.
Yeah.
So I would go ahead. I would go ahead and do the 2 bills. You need to pay them.
Well, we do need to.
Yeah.
And you gather data.
Count the kids.
We do need to decide on the LED by March.
Okay, good. Both ways.
The other thing we might want to do is have Gene Amundsen target the families that live in those 90 homes, and maybe we could do a survey to those families and ask them, you
I
know,
don't think they're gonna say take it down.
no, but we could ask them what they use it for
How often they
and
use
how
it.
often.
Maybe they're tired of it.
So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
we could do that. So, okay.
So we're gonna revisit that. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to action items. Yes.
Yes.
All right, item 9A is our 2015-2016 school calendar. In this case, the board is being asked to approve the school calendars presented as discussed at the committee of the whole meeting on February 10th, as well as the January regular board meeting. Jean, would you like to add to that or give a summary of this?
Well, the summary,
We've been talking about it forever.
we have been talking about it forever. But for those people that are watching, we pretty much took this year's calendar and put it on next year's calendar, did a little bit, added a couple, or excuse me, moved some days a little bit earlier in August to provide for a longer summer in the, I have the wrong calendar, that's why, in the summer of 2016. So it's very important that everybody knows that that's why we did that. I know one of the issues that's come up repeatedly is what are the emergency days going to look like? And on this particular calendar, and I'm looking for them here. Emergency days are going to be June 2nd, June 3rd, February 15th, and then we're going to set up a swap that if we needed a 4th day, the kids would be in school on May 6th, which is an institute day, and then the teachers would come June 6th. And I think it's June 7th. My 7 is cut off on that on my sheet of paper. We're gonna have to look at that.
Gene,
So-
could you give the starting date? Because I've already had questions asked of me what the starting date is.
The starting
next
date
year.
for
I believe
children,
it's
for
August
students, is
19th, Wednesday.
August 17th. No,
No, it's not
No,
development,
next
it's
year
the
it's August
19th.
22nd. You're looking at the 14, 15,
Yeah,
or
it's-
15,
no, I'm on 15, 16.
Okay, 15, 16.
But the
So
first-
it is August 19th. You are correct, Richard.
That's a Wednesday.
It is a Wednesday.
Were people saying that's too early to start school?
I haven't heard anyone say it's too early or too late.
Okay.
I've just had
curious.
They just
requests.
want to know.
They want to know so they can plan their.
But we do
And
try to
then-
expand that summer so that we can have
Right,
construction during
right.
the next summer. So.
Right, and that would be a good reason to move it earlier. Although I generally will go on record as being opposed to such an early start. After Labor Day is better.
The other thing, Julie, I would tell you that we did bring back to the committee, I shared at the last meeting, we did bring back to the committee the President's Day issue that you had brought up, and everybody felt without question that we would rather not have an emergency day on Easter Monday and rather be in school on President's Day, because Lake Forest is off on that Easter Monday, and then that gives, 9 days or whatever.
Right.
So we did bring that back and ask.
Well, I'm at a point where I benefit from having those two calendars in tandem, so okay. But let me ask you about the emergency day order, because I see the swap, that sounds good, but then if we use June 7th, that would mean we'd use June 6th first, and June 7th would be a...
Right,
one,
that's the
okay.
fifth one.
Right, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It'd be the sixth one, right? Because we'd use June 6th before we'd use June
Exactly.
7th. So June 7th would be a 6th day?
No, it would be June 6th. So when you look at the emergency days, and we've got to clarify that on the top of this one, it's going to be June 2nd, June 3rd, February 15th, May 6th, May 6th, June 6th swap. But what winds up happening then is the kids would come back June 6th as the 5th day, and the teachers would have to come back on June 7th.
Yeah,
That's
that makes
what the
sense.
issue is.
Okay.
It's confusing, but I think there's two different things. There's kids' days and there's staff days.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have any additional questions or comments or concerns?
We're doing 15-16 first, correct?
Right, 9/8, 2015-16. All right, so may I have a motion to approve the 2015-2016 school calendar as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Julie Gottschall, yes. Richard Hegg.
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
motion is approved. Now we move on to the item 9B, the 2016-2017 school calendar framework. In this case, the board is being asked to approve the framework for 2016-2017 as discussed at the Committee of the Whole on February 10th, with the understanding that we will stay consistent with Lake Forest High School in regards to winter and spring breaks. Anything to add, Jean?
No, I think the key part, as I shared at last week's meeting, is, again, that August, we really need to make sure that we have the longer summer. I shared that this is framework only. Right now, Lake Forest is really debating on whether they're going to have a different calendar, that they would start earlier in August to try to get all the classes in prior to Christmas break. If that occurs, their Christmas vacation is going to change, their winter break is going to change, and so therefore the note at the top that says Lake Bluff winter break may change due to whatever decision Lake Forest 115 makes, because our winter break and our spring breaks have to be aligned.
Right.
Anybody else? Questions?
Terry's done a great job. She learned all about calendars this year, and they are perfectly in alignment.
Great. All right, I have a motion to approve the 2016-2017 school calendar framework as presented by the administration.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Richard Hegg.
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Julie Gottschall, yes.
Okay, the motion is approved. Item 9C, 2015-2016 Parent-Student Handbook. The board is being asked to approve the handbook for 2015-2016 with revisions suggested by our attorney in the draft discussed at February 10th board meeting. Questions, comments, or concerns?
This is something I will be bringing every year. Please note that every time we change a board policy, this handbook will change. But I think it's very important, as does the Illinois Association of School Boards, that the board looks at and approves the parent-student handbook. I am proud to say, and actually very excited to say, that I believe that all of the names of administrators in our handbook will be remaining the same for next year.
That's great.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve it? Approve the 2015-2016 Parent-Student Handbook with revisions and updates as presented by the administration.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks.
I'm not making this easy. Okay, John Rosen.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Julie Gottschall, yes. Richard Hegg.
Yes.
The motion is approved. Moving on to item 9D, which is regarding certified staffing plan for 2015-16. In this case, the board is being asked to approve the certified staffing plan as discussed at the February 10th meeting as well as the January regular board meeting. The administration's recommendation is for a total licensed staff of 97 FTE for 2015-2016 school year. This is a reduction from 99 FTE in 2014-2015. This does not impact the number of teaching positions. The two reductions are 1 FTE math coach, staff support, and 1 FTE director emeritus of business administration. Questions or comments or concerns about this?
No.
Okay, may I have a roll call? May I have a motion to approve the certified staffing plan for 2015-2016 as recommended by the administration to include a total licensed staff of 97 FTE, a reduction of 2 FTE from 99 FTE in 2014-2015.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Julie Gottschall, yes. Richard Haig.
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
The motion is approved. Item 9E, policy for first read. Policy 7:180 is being brought for first read after discussion at the February 10th, 2015 board meeting. Does anybody have questions or comments about that?
Just a reminder that this will be coming back for more changes as soon as Terry reworks what the changes were from the memo that I put in your packets from IASB. Because they're now asking for examples of things in the policy.
Okay, I will move to approve the policy.
Okay.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Julie Gottschall, yes. Richard Haig.
Yes.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes. Motion's approved. All right. Agenda item 9F, policies for second read. We're talking about policy 720, harassment for students, 7:190, student discipline, 7:192, isolated timeout and physical restraint, and 7:230, misconduct by students with disabilities. All are being brought for second read and adoption.
Okay.
Anybody
There
have any
was one
questions?
change that I think we discussed to 7.20, harassment of students, and that was changing the word classifications to characteristics. I don't know if I'm looking at the wrong version of the policy or if that change didn't carry through or it was rejected.
Was
for
it
some
this
other reason.
policy? Because there was another one I sent to Terry that she's still working on.
It was this one because we
Okay.
talked about calling it protected characteristics instead of classifications. Other than that, I think it looks good. I would just ask for that one word change.
Classifications.
Classification should be characteristics, and I see it come up in the first paragraph and the last paragraph on the first page, although it may be on other places as well. That's one issue with that one. And the other issue I have is with 7.23, and that's the students with disabilities. And it continues to trouble me that we have this reference to students with disabilities without any definition of what it means for the purpose of this policy. I mean, if a student wears eyeglasses, is that a student with a disability covered by this policy? Or is it really meant to reach students with disabilities that require an IEP? Does it matter? I just find that reference to disabilities so vague. In this
I'm going to turn
policy,
that one
so-
over to Kevin, since he did the work on that one, and he has the expertise.
7:230.
7.230.
And
230.
and the reason, and originally when we had talked about this in December, one of the things that you had asked us to do, because if you'll recall, we had this policy along with the timeout and physical
Yeah.
restraint policy
Yeah.
together.
Mhm.
You asked us to go back and take a second look at that. Why was it only kids with disabilities? So we did that, and then the other piece of this is, and I suppose that we can define it a little bit more clearly. When we're talking about kids in schools, we are in general talking about kids with disabilities who fall under federal IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, and so those would be kids with IEPs, and then students who receive accommodations under Section 504.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I know we're back for second read, and I hate to belabor this point anymore. At the same time, it's vague as written, but I mean, can we add a sentence that would say students with disabilities are protected by state and federal law, or to the extent they're protected by state and federal law, or have IEPs or 504s or something like that.
So you're suggesting that the first sentence, students with disabilities are protected by state and federal law, IDEA, and...
It wouldn't go there, but somewhere in this policy to define, when we're talking about students with disabilities, the universe of student we're talking about, because disabilities is such a broad term that it becomes meaningless in this.
Though I am
That's
not
defined by the
100%
law.
sure. Yeah, and I'm wondering if it's defined other places in our policy manual.
I doubt it. I don't remember seeing that, but I would tell you it's defined by
How about,
law.
well, it is, but well, I'm familiar with the law that would give it a very broad definition, the Americans with Disabilities Act. So, I mean, maybe simply saying students with disabilities as defined under IDEA
And Section 504.
and Section 504.
Rehabilitation Act. I'm just checking the other board policy, because I think that it is actually defined in Section 6, where we talk about, in Section 6 of the policy manual.
Okay, well, if that's the case, maybe we should just move on from it.
And
I just,
of course, you know, right now the internet is a little bit slow. So.
Would you be, to me, it would be easier just at this point to say students with disabilities and then add as defined by IDEA and Section 504 are protected, and just
do we have to have this policy? Is this one of those that's required under law that you have a students with disabilities behavioral intervention? Because there is something troubling to me that someone who has a 504, which one can have for, say, diabetes, would have this, you know, positive behavioral interventions will be used, that they're somehow segmented out. I understand if you have a behavioral issue.
we are required
A
to have
policy related to students with disabilities and the disciplinary sanctions that are applied to them. We have a separate discipline policy. We're required by law to purposefully put into place additional protections for those students.
Okay. Yeah, again, protections that I'm not sure actually play out exactly as intended. But why don't we move on and just approve the policy as written? It seems to be something that troubles only me.
So under section 6120 of board policy, it's titled Education of Children with Disabilities, and I am 99% sure, and we have 7 seconds left, that it defines, it does. So Education of Children with Disabilities, and it defines IDEA and implementing provisions of the school code, section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 73 and the Americans with Disabilities Act. So
And what policy is that?
that's board policy 6120. So we're covered and it defines it there.
Okay. All right. Okay. Why don't we move on?
So I will modify 720 when we ask for the motion to change characteristics to classifications.
No, other way. Classifications to characteristics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Good thing I said it. And then leave the others alone.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so on item 9F, policy for second read, may I have a motion to approve policy for second read and adoption as presented by the administration, which includes policy 7:20, harassment of students, with the change being that we changed the wording classification to characteristics. 7:910, student discipline. 7:192, isolated timeout and physical restraint. 7:230, misconduct by students with disabilities.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call please.
Richard Hay?
Yes.
John Rosen?
Yes.
Mark Berry?
Yes.
Julie Gottschall? Yes.
Motion is approved. All right. Moving right along. Item 9G, approval of personnel report. We have a personnel report tonight that includes, recommendation to employ of non-licensed employees, a Julie Shaw, who's a teacher's assistant at Lake Bluff Elementary School, effective February 3rd of 2015. She'll be replacing Melissa Pasquesi. Andrea Freeberg, a special education teacher assistant at Lake Bluff Middle School, effective February 9th, 2015. And that will be replacing Mary Wester. And then under licensed employees, we have a recommendation for extension of leave of absence of Frances Sale, first grade teacher at Lake Bluff Elementary School, effective August 2015 through June 2016. And it extends extension of a leave for 2015-2016. Any questions or comments or concerns about this?
No.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the personnel report for February as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Julie Gottschall, yes. Richard Haig.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Moving on to the consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda includes 6 items: the tri-district meeting minutes from January 22nd of 2014, the regular Board of Ed meeting minutes from January 27th of 2015, closed session meeting minutes from January 27th of 2015, our P card report, our bills payable report, and our January treasurer's report. Would anybody on the board like to have any of those items removed for further discussion and take them out of consent agenda?
No.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda for January 27th, 2015 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
John Rosen.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Julie Gottschall, yes. Richard Haig.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Okay, we have finished our action items and now moved on to FOIA requests. We have none. That was good. Public comments. If anybody would like to address the board, they can do so now. Otherwise, we'll move on and ask for an adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn the Board of Ed meeting for February 17th, 2015 at 7:55 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.